Welcome back. We're now delighted to be joined over the telephone by our guest for the afternoon, Mr. Ramzy Khoury, our journalist. It's a very good afternoon to you, Mr. Ramzy.
Good afternoon to you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time. And let me start by asking about the latest development. We've seen Hamas saying it has rejected the new conditions in a Gaza ceasefire proposal that the US-led mediators have presented over the 2 days of talks in Qatar. And on the other side, we've seen the US President Joe Biden insisting after the latest round of talks that they're now closer than ever to reach some sort of agreement. How do you see this latest development, Mr. Ramzy?
Well, the thing with the U.S. proposal is that it succumbs to the Israeli demands that have been rejected by Hamas over and over and over, and therefore this is a new proposal that is 100% fitting to the Israeli demands. And the Israeli demands that are rejected is continued presence of the Israeli military on the Netzarim axis, and as well as full control of the Rafah crossing. And this is not going to be accepted by the Palestinians, and the Americans should know this.
Yes.
So when the Americans come and say, we are so close to reaching an agreement, but here are these two new totally rejected items on the agenda, then they should be expecting Hamas to reject it. The Palestinians cannot afford to have these two rules, because that means that the Israeli control and division of Gaza is going to continue after the Israelis get back all of their prisoners. And therefore, this is totally ridiculous. This is why Hamas rejected. The Americans want an end, but they want the end to this. They want the release of what they call their hostages, and they want it ASAP because they have elections coming.
Yes.
So the Americans need a ceasefire, and a permanent ceasefire for that matter, unless it's a temporary ceasefire that can actually wait until the end of American elections. So this is basically what the Americans want. And we've also heard the Israeli military come out and say it is time to reach a ceasefire. And the Israeli military is not saying this because they achieved any major goals. The Israeli military is saying this because they know that they cannot continue this forever. And they're paying a very big price. And things are getting escalated on the northern border as well. And it's becoming a very big problem for the Israeli army.
Absolutely, Mr. Ramzy. And on the other side, you know, we've seen the continued attacks by the Israeli occupation forces. The official Palestinian news agency reported at least 20 Palestinians were killed and dozens more wounded in an Israeli strike in a town in central Gaza. The continued aggression on the ground, there seems to be no pause even during the talks or the negotiations.
Absolutely not. The genocide continues. This is an ongoing genocide. It hasn't stopped. There hasn't been one day in which Palestinian civilians were not murdered. And we've reached now over 40,000 dead. We have almost 100,000 injured. And this is a genocide that is just continuing. The Israelis are deliberately killing civilians. And the world is watching, and the world is doing absolutely nothing about it. And it seems to me and to the world that when the U.S. continues to come back with offer after offer, the Israelis sabotaging the talks and continuing their genocide, this is pretty much has become a mechanism for whitewashing genocide. Because if you come as a mediator in negotiations. And this is what the USA is claiming to be, and nobody believes the US because the US is so one-sided to Israel. But at the end of the day, if you come as a mediator, the least you can do is behave as a mediator. And the mediator is not somebody who comes and uses negotiations to allow for a genocide to continue. The Americans, if they were serious, they would have told Israel, you stop your aggression, I don't want to see any civilians dead, and you sit on the negotiation table and give this a shot, a real shot, and stop playing this as a game, because we are not toys in your hands. That's what a real mediator would do. Unfortunately, the U.S. is not a real mediator, and they are not doing this. On the contrary, by every few weeks, they come back with a new offer. The last offer, by the way, the Americans declared that this is an Israeli offer. Then Israel sabotaged their own offer. We know that the American administration, Biden, doesn't want this to continue throughout the American elections, because it is actually influencing the election.
Yes.
It is the reason why, part of the reason why Biden had to actually quit and hand over to Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris is suffering within her own party.
Yes.
A lot of people are saying, how much of a partner are you? They're asking her, how much of a partner are you in genocide? Joe Biden is going to go down in history as Genocide Joe. This is how people are going to remember him. And all of this price is being paid because this is what Israel wants. But is this good for the U.S.? Is the U.S. getting any benefits out of this? The U.S. is paying a very big price for all of this. So the Americans would like this to end. Unfortunately, until today, they are fighting for it to end exactly how Israel wants it to end, rather than how it should end.
Absolutely.
And this is where we are today.
Mr. Ramzy, now we've seen today President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi speaking to the French Foreign Minister, and they were talking about the international community's responsibility regarding pushing to decrease the escalation in the area and the radical treatment of some of the reasons of the conflict by establishing the Palestinian state and implementing the two-state solution. We're not hearing this enough. Even during negotiations, to come back to the core of the issue. How important is it to focus that this is the end, the end game of the negotiations?
The Israelis are totally disinterested. Totally disinterested. And all of these governments are trying to appease Israel. Israel doesn't want to discuss a two-state solution or what's going to happen after the war. They are totally disinterested in this. They reject the principle of two-state solution. They've rejected it clearly and publicly. So it's no longer a suspicion. If people were suspecting that Israel is not interested, after 30 years of Oslo, 30 years of Oslo, 30 years of peace negotiations in order to reach a two-state solution. And it wasn't the Palestinians who derailed Oslo and Madrid. It was the Israelis. And the Norwegians are very angry because Oslo is in Norway. And the Norwegians were the people who actually held the talks and pushed and did all of that and started the Oslo process. What did Israel do to the Norwegians? They kicked out their diplomats out of Jerusalem and ended the Norwegian diplomatic representation inside of Jerusalem. This is what the Israelis did. This is how much respect they have for Oslo or for the principle of a two-state solution. They're not interested. They don't want it. Everybody knows that. And unless Israel is forced to do it, Israel will never do it. Israel wants more territory. It doesn't want to give up territory. If Israel had a choice, they would be implementing a program to achieve their Eretz Israel. And Eretz Israel is not confined to Palestine. It also has Egyptian land in it, and Jordan, and several countries. And this is basically what the Israelis want. They want to see a greater Israel rather than for Israel to shrink. And this is the problem with any colonial power. Israel is behaving as a classical colonial power that is willing to commit genocide, is very happy to be described as an apartheid state, for as long as it's not paying a price for apartheid. And Israel has managed until now to get away with that. They're getting away with genocide, so they're getting away with murder, but they're also getting away with the fact that they are an apartheid state, they are a racist state, they are war criminals by all means when it comes to international law, yet they haven't paid the price for it. They haven't paid the price. Israel is not under any sanctions. Nobody has restricted the sales and and business relations with Israel. Economic relations between Israel and the vast majority of the world is still ongoing, despite all of this. So if they are able to get away with murder, they're going to continue to murder. And this is basically what's going on right now. And the world has to turn around and take responsibility and come and say to Israel, well, you have two options. You either resolve the Palestinian issue through a two-state solution, let's say, or you are going to pay a very big economic price. We are going to sanction you. We are going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There has to be a certain list of punitive measures that would force Israel in the right direction. Otherwise, Israel is going to continue doing this. And it's fascinating that Israel does not get humiliated, does not feel the humiliation. The reputation worldwide has become terrible. At the popular level, at the official level, everywhere. And yet, they're fine with it. They're fine, and they're willing to continue, and they don't want to stop.
Absolutely. Finally, just to wrap up, Mr. Ramzy, now we're also seeing, the conflict spilling over into other areas in the region. The latest strike by Israel had about 10 people killed, including 2 children, and 5 more were wounded by a strike on a residential building in South Lebanon. And the Israeli military claimed the airstrike targeted a weapons depot, which was used by Hezbollah fighters. And still, the conflict seems to be snowballing to other countries around as well in the region. How critical and how dangerous is this, especially with the involvement of different parties?
Well, first of all, the attack on South Lebanon and the murder of 10 civilians has absolutely nothing to do with Hezbollah. This is the housing compound of a private factory that has nothing to do with any military products. And these people are Syrian workers. They were murdered, and their wives and their children. And again, Israel is getting away with it. And they're claiming whatever they claim. Everybody knows that Israel lies and lies and lies. Doesn't stop lying. It is escalating in the north, and we also know that both Iran and Hezbollah want to retaliate for the operations that Israel has done, both in Lebanon and inside of Iran. And therefore, we are still at the edge. And it seems that the retaliation was postponed to give Biden a chance to pull off some kind of an agreement, as he is saying he would. I hope that all of this is not just another fiasco in order to derail the retaliation, rather than to actually reach a ceasefire that would stop the murder of all of these civilians in Gaza. But that's exactly what's happening. So we should expect, if the talks collapse, and of course with the new issues that Israel has put inside of the offer that Biden is putting on the table, i.e. the Israeli military will remain in Gaza and this is not going to end, then unfortunately we should expect it to collapse. And if it does collapse, then we should expect the retaliations to happen. And if that happens, and Israel retaliates to the retaliation, then we are talking about another scene.
Yes. Indeed, on that note, I'm afraid I have to wrap it up. Mr. Ramzy Khoury, our journalist and our guest for the afternoon, I'd like to thank you very much, sir, for your time and insight. And with that, we wrap up today's edition of Arab Affairs. You're in the company of myself, Angie Meher. Thank you for joining us.